The air inside the dorm was thick with sweat, yelling, and panic. Metal bunks scraped the floor as inmates used them like shields. Two gangs were charging toward each other, swinging fists, broom handles, and anything sharp they could find. Rikers Island wasn't a jail tonight. It was a battlefield. Marcus stood frozen near the wall, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his throat. He was only 19, not a gang member, not a troublemaker, just a kid waiting for his court date. But in this place, it didn't matter who you were. You were part of the storm whether you wanted it or not. Someone shouted, "Lock I in." No one listened. A chair flew across the room. A bunk flipped over. Officers tried to push through the chaos, but they were outnumbered and getting swallowed by the wave of bodies. Marcus watched as a tall inmate with a long scar down his face turned, spotted him, and pointed. "Hey, you, come here." Marcus froze. Was he being dragged into the fight? Was someone coming to hurt him? Or was this man the only person who could save him? Before Marcus could move, something happened that changed the whole direction of the riot, something he never saw coming. The screen fades to black. If you're ready, stick with this story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss what comes next. The road to Rikers. Hours before the riot, Marcus sat in the back of a correctional bus, hands cuffed, staring out the window at the gray water surrounding Rikers Island. He didn't know what waited for him. All he knew were the stories, the fights, the fear, the endless chaos. An older inmate leaned toward him and whispered, "First time?" Marcus nodded. "Just watch who you talk to. This place eats the wrong people alive." Marcus tried to keep calm, but his hands trembled against the metal cuffs. When the bus rolled through the gates, Rikers looked bigger than he imagined. Razor wire curling like metal thorns, officers pacing with radios buzzing, buildings stacked like concrete boxes. Inside intake, everything moved fast. Clothes off, clothes on, questions, fingerprints, a bag with a thin blanket and a toothbrush. Nobody smiled. Nobody looked him in the eye. He felt like he was already disappearing into the system. An officer brought him to a dorm known for constant trouble. The officer sighed as the door buzzed open. "Good luck," he muttered. Inside, everyone stared at Marcus like he was a new piece on a chessboard. Some were curious, some cold, some looking to see if he was weak. He found a top bunk against the wall and climbed up quietly. Not long after, two men approached him, one tall with a scar, the other short with a twitch in his eye. "You knew? You got commissary?" the tall one asked. Marcus shook his head. The shorter man smirked. "Better get some soon. People get hurt over small things in here." Before Marcus could respond, a loud crash erupted across the dorm. A table flipped. Two groups started yelling. Officers rushed toward the noise. Marcus's heart jumped. Welcome to Rikers. Hours later, lying in his bunk, he finally started to drift off, until the same tall inmate from earlier walked to the center of the dorm and yelled something that made everyone in the room go silent. The night that would change Marcus's life was just beginning. Trapped in chaos. The dorm was silent for a moment, but it didn't last. The tall, scar-faced inmate scanned the room, his eyes landing on Marcus again. He didn't say another word, just moved closer. Marcus's stomach twisted. Every instinct screamed, "Run. Hide. Don't look at him." But there was nowhere to run. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the hall, metal doors slamming, followed by shouting. It wasn't just a fight. It was a warning. The chaos outside the dorm was spreading fast. Marcus realized that the entire building was shaking with tension. Someone screamed, "Get down." Marcus dropped to the floor, clutching the edge of his bunk. Around him, inmates were scrambling, some yelling, some crying. The sound of fists hitting metal and would made it impossible to think. The scar-faced inmate shoved a broken broom toward Marcus. "Use it if you have to," he said. Then, just as quickly, he vanished into the crowd. Marcus held the broom tightly, hands slippery with sweat. He didn't want to hit anyone. He didn't want trouble. But survival didn't care about intentions. In the hallways, the riot was growing. Inmates were breaking locks, kicking doors open, and rushing toward one another. The sound of sirens and shouting officers mixed with the chaos inside the dorm. Marcus could hear someone yelling his name, but he didn't know if it was a friend warning him or a gang member looking for a target. Ellis, the skinny kid from the bunk below, grabbed Marcus's arm. "Follow me," he shouted. They ducked behind a stack of metal tables as a group of gang members ran past. Marcus tried to breathe slowly, but the sound of people screaming, furniture breaking, and fists hitting flesh made it impossible. His hands shook so violently he dropped the broom. A voice shouted behind him, "Hey, don't let him escape." Marcus turned just in time to see one of the scarred inmates' friends running toward him. Without thinking, he pushed the tables in front of him and crawled toward the corner. His heart was pounding so fast he thought he might collapse. Cornered Marcus found himself in the furthest corner of the dorm, pressed against the wall. His eyes darted around. Everyone was fighting. Everyone was shouting. He saw a young man get thrown into a bunk, bouncing hard before hitting the floor. Someone screamed in pain. Another yelled in triumph. Marcus's mind raced. How do you survive this? How do you make it through the night? He remembered Ellis's advice. Stay behind the tables. They block most hits. Marcus pushed one of the tables in front of him and crouched. He watched the scar-faced inmate from a distance. The man was like a predator, moving with purpose, surveying everyone around him. Marcus had no idea why he had singled him out, but he knew one thing. He couldn't leave that corner alive without being noticed. A moment of terrifying calm. For a few terrifying seconds, the dorm fell quiet. A strange, heavy silence. Every eye was watching. Every muscle tensed. The riot seemed to pause, but Marcus knew better. Somewhere in the back, someone whispered, "It's only going to get worse." And just as Marcus started to hope that maybe he could slip through the chaos unnoticed, a loud, shattering scream tore through the dorm. Everyone froze. Then came the sound of metal hitting metal. Fists striking faces. The scar-faced inmate had returned, and this time, he was coming straight for Marcus. The scar-faced inmate stormed toward Marcus like a force of nature. Marcus's heart felt like it was going to explode. He clutched the overturned table as his only shield, hoping it would be enough. Ellis grabbed his arm. "Move." Now, they crawled behind a row of bunks, ducking as punches and objects flew past. The dorm had turned into pure chaos. Broken wood, flying chairs, and men screaming in rage. Blood splattered the walls, and the air was thick with fear and sweat. Marcus felt trapped. Every exit seemed blocked. Every face around him looked dangerous. And yet, he couldn't run. He had no idea where to go. A split-second choice, the scar-faced inmate was closing in, his eyes locked on Marcus. Time seemed to stretch. One wrong move, and Marcus knew he'd get caught. Then Ellis whispered urgently, "There's a small gap near the lockers. You can slip through." Marcus looked. It was a tight space, barely wide enough to squeeze his body through. But it was his only chance. He took a deep breath, pushed the table aside, and darted toward the gap. His heart was racing so fast he could barely hear anything else. Behind him, the sounds of the riot grew louder, a reminder that survival was never guaranteed here. The narrow escape, Marcus squeezed through the gap, scraping his shoulder against the lockers. Pain shot through him, but he kept moving. He landed on the other side, taking cover behind a laundry cart. His hands were bleeding, and his shirt was torn. Ellis followed, panting. "You okay?" he asked. Marcus shook his head, still too shocked to speak. The scar-faced inmate had vanished from sight for now, but Marcus knew it wasn't over. Not even close. Around them, the dorm was still in flames. Not literal fire, but every inch of the room burned with violence. Inmates were brawling in groups, officers struggling to control the chaos, and the air felt heavy with tension, fear, and survival instinct. The quiet before the next storm. For a few minutes, Marcus and Ellis stayed hidden, trying to catch their breath. Marcus's mind was spinning. He didn't understand how this place operated. One moment, it seemed like everyone was fighting. The next, there was silence, only to explode again without warning. Ellis leaned close. "Listen, if you survive this night, you'll never forget it. Nothing on the outside prepares you for Rikers." Marcus nodded silently, realizing just how true that was. Every sound outside their hiding spot could be his last warning. Every step from an approaching inmate could mean life or death. Then, suddenly, a loud bang echoed from the main hall. Marcus froze. He knew what it meant. The riot was spreading even further. And now, it wasn't just the dorm. It was the whole block. Marcus and Ellis exchanged a glance. Survival wasn't just about hiding anymore. It was about making a choice, fight or run, and quickly. Chaos spreads. The loud bang from the main hall echoed like a warning through the dorm. Marcus's chest pounded as he peeked over the laundry cart. Across the hall, More inmates were rushing toward the chaos, swinging anything they could grab. Ellis grabbed Marcus's arm. "We have to move. Now." They crawled low, weaving between overturned tables and bunks. Every step was dangerous. A chair toppled beside them, sending a sharp crash through the room. Some inmates shouted, others laughed like maniacs, and every sound made Marcus flinch. A deadly decision. Marcus and Ellis reached a narrow corridor that led toward the exit. For a moment, it looked like safety. But as they peeked around the corner, they saw a group of men blocking the way. Fists clenched, faces twisted in anger. Marcus froze. He didn't have any weapons. He didn't even know if he could fight. The only thing he could do was hope that the men wouldn't notice him. Ellis whispered urgently, "We can't go back. We can't go forward. We have to sneak past them." Marcus nodded, swallowing hard. He followed Ellis's lead, keeping his body pressed against the walls, trying not to breathe too loud. Every step felt like it could be the last. A close call as they moved past a stack of laundry bins. One of the gang members turned sharply. His eyes landed on Marcus. "Hey, you," the man shouted. Marcus froze, heart in his throat. Ellis shoved him forward. "Run!" They sprinted down the corridor, dodging flying objects and yelling inmates. Marcus's lungs burned, and he felt a sharp pain in his shoulder from a close scrape with a locker. Behind them, the gang member cursed and chased after them, but the two boys disappeared around a corner just in time. For a few seconds, silence returned. Marcus and Ellis leaned against the wall, gasping. Marcus's hands were shaking so badly he could barely grip the edges. The riot grows worse. Then a new sound filled the air, alarms blaring. Officers were shouting orders into radios, but they were overwhelmed. The riot had grown beyond control. Every dorm in the block was erupting into chaos. Marcus realized this wasn't just a fight between a few gangs. This was the entire jail collapsing into chaos. Survival was no longer about hiding. It was about moving, thinking fast, and staying alive no matter what. Ellis looked at Marcus. "We need to get to the stairwell. It's our only way out of this floor. Come on." Marcus nodded, gripping the laundry cart for balance as they made their way toward the stairwell. Each step was a gamble. One wrong move could mean getting caught in the middle of the fight. The stairwell. They reached the stairwell, only to find it crowded with inmates and guards clashing in a violent tug-of-war. Marcus's stomach sank. This wasn't an exit anymore. It was a battlefield. Ellis whispered, "There's a service door at the end. We can use that. It might be our only chance." Marcus swallowed hard, fear twisting his stomach. He had no idea what waited beyond that door. But staying here wasn't an option. Survival meant taking the risk, even if it could be deadly. He took a deep breath, steeled himself, and followed Ellis toward the service door. Every sound of the riot behind them reminded Marcus that Rikers Island was more than just a jail. It was a war zone, and only the strongest, smartest, or luckiest would make it through the night. Marcus and Ellis reached the end of the stairwell. A heavy metal service door stood between them and the faint hope of safety. Sweat poured down Marcus's face. His arms shook, and every muscle in his body screamed to stop. But the chaos behind them left no choice. Ellis yanked at the door. It was locked. He slammed his shoulder against it. Nothing. Another push. Nothing. "Come on," Ellis hissed, fear in his voice. "We don't have time." Marcus looked back toward the stairwell. The shouts, screams, and crashes were closer now. The riot was closing in faster than they had imagined. The breakthrough. Ellis spotted a small metal panel near the base of the door. He bent down, pried it open, and revealed a rusty latch. "Here. Quick." Marcus crouched low and helped pull the latch. The door groaned loudly but finally gave way. They slipped inside, bodies pressed against the wall as the heavy metal swung shut behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Marcus could barely breathe. His chest heaved so hard it hurt. His shirt was soaked with sweat. He thought he was safe, but deep down, he knew the night was far from over. The hidden corridor. Inside, the space was narrow, dark, and smelled of mold and chemicals. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping water onto the floor. It felt like a secret passage, a hidden path even inmates rarely saw. Ellis whispered, "This should take us to the other side of the block, a quieter area. Stay close." They crept through the corridor, every step echoing in the darkness. Marcus's mind raced. He couldn't stop thinking about the scar-faced inmate. He had escaped the dorm, but the man was still out there. and whoever controlled that dorm could hunt him down at any moment. A sudden sound suddenly, a loud clang echoed from the pipes above. Marcus froze. Ellis froze. Somebody was coming. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, deliberate. Marcus's stomach dropped. He pressed against the wall, heart racing, hoping whoever it was would pass by. But the footsteps didn't stop. They were getting closer. Then, a shadow appeared at the end of the corridor. A tall figure, moving with purpose. Marcus's blood ran cold. Ellis hissed, "Stay calm. Don't move." The figure paused, scanning the corridor. Marcus could feel its eyes on them. Every muscle in his body tensed. The figure took a step closer, and then stopped abruptly, as if sensing something. Marcus held his breath, wishing he could disappear. But in Rikers Island, disappearing was never an option. Cornered again, the shadow moved faster, almost gliding toward them. Marcus's mind screamed for action, for escape, for anything. His only thought, survival. He whispered, "Ellis, what do we do?" Ellis didn't answer. He was frozen too, eyes wide, staring at the figure that now blocked the corridor. In that moment, Marcus realized something terrifying. Escaping the dorm had not saved him. It had only brought him into a new danger, one even closer, darker, and more threatening. The screen fades to black. Face to face with danger. Marcus's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst. The shadow in the corridor stopped just a few feet away, a tall figure with broad shoulders. Every instinct screamed run, but there was nowhere to go. Ellis whispered, barely audible, "Stay calm. Don't make a sound." The figure's eyes scanned the corridor slowly, deliberately. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. The face was partially hidden by the dim light, but he could see the glint of something metallic in the man's hand. Marcus froze. His mind raced. Is this another inmate? A guard? Or worse, the scar-faced man from the dorm? The figure took a slow step forward, the metal object catching the light. Marcus's hands trembled. He felt trapped, like the walls were closing in. A moment of terror. Time seemed to stretch. Every sound Marcus had ever heard, the banging doors, the shouting, the crashing furniture, all faded. All that remained was the figure in front of him and his own rapid heartbeat. Ellis pressed against Marcus, gripping his shoulder. "On 3, we run," he whispered. Marcus nodded, though fear had frozen him in place. One wrong move, and it could be over. Sudden movement, the figure shifted suddenly, almost like it sensed their plan. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Then, a loud voice echoed from behind the shadow, "Hey, move it." The figure turned toward the new voice, giving Marcus and Ellis the moment they needed. "Now," Ellis shouted. They sprinted down the corridor, slipping past the shadow just as it turned back. The metal object clanged against the wall, missing them by inches. Marcus's lungs burned, his legs ached, but adrenaline pushed him forward. A narrow escape. The corridor twisted and turned, taking them deeper into the building. Each corner they rounded seemed like a gamble. Someone could be waiting, ready to stop them. Finally, they reached a stairwell that led to a lower level. It was quieter here, less chaotic, but Marcus knew the danger hadn't disappeared. The sounds of the riot above were distant, but still there, a constant reminder that Rikers Island was alive with violence. Ellis looked at Marcus. "We need to keep moving. The longer we stay, the more likely someone finds us." Marcus nodded. Fear had settled deep into his chest, but determination was rising too. Survival wasn't about luck anymore. It was about choices. Quick, smart choices. A flicker of hope. They descended the stairs slowly, trying to stay unseen. The stairwell was dimly lit, but for the first time since the riot began, Marcus felt a small spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, they could make it through this night alive. But as they reached the bottom of the stairwell, a sudden noise, a loud crash followed by a man's shout, made Marcus's blood run cold. Something was waiting at the bottom, something that would change everything for him. The screen fades to black. The lower level ambush. Marcus's stomach twisted as he reached the bottom of the stairwell. The dim light flickered, casting long, jagged shadows across the walls. The faint smell of damp concrete and rust filled the air. Something was definitely waiting. He could feel it. Ellis froze beside him. "Stay close. Don't make a sound," he whispered. Before Marcus could react, a figure lunged from behind a stack of crates. It was one of the dorm gang members. Eyes wild, a metal pipe gripped tightly in his hands. Marcus yelped and stumbled backward. Ellis shoved him out of the way just in time as the pipe slammed into the wall where Marcus had been standing. The metal screeched, sending sparks into the air. Fight or flight. Marcus's heart was hammering. His hands shook. He had never fought anyone like this before. Survival wasn't a choice anymore. It was mandatory. Ellis grabbed a loose pipe from the floor. We have to fight, or we're done. Marcus took a deep breath and swung the broom he still held. He didn't know if it would hit, but it was better than nothing. The gang member lunged again, and Marcus hit him across the arm. The man yelled, staggering back. Ellis took advantage of the distraction and shoved Marcus toward a narrow side corridor. Move. Now. They ran, barely keeping their balance on the wet, uneven floor. Every second felt like a lifetime. Marcus could hear footsteps pounding behind them, shouts, and the distant roar of chaos from above. Trapped again. The side corridor ended at a heavy metal door. Marcus grabbed the handle. Locked. Ellis kicked the door. It's jammed. We need another way. Behind them, the gang member from before shouted, You're not going anywhere. Marcus's mind raced. The lower level was a maze, and every door, every corner could be a trap. He realized just how much danger he was in. This was no longer just a fight for survival. This was a chase for life. A dangerous shortcut. Ellis pointed to a narrow maintenance hatch in the corner. Through there? Hurry. Marcus didn't hesitate. They crawled into the tiny space, scraping their arms and legs on rusted metal. The gang member tried to follow, but the hatch was too small. He cursed loudly as Marcus and Ellis disappeared into darkness. Inside, the space was tight, suffocating, and pitch black. Water dripped from the ceiling, and every movement echoed like a gunshot. Marcus could barely breathe. His heart raced so fast he thought it might explode. A glimpse of hope. After what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the hatch led them to a small storage room. Shelves lined the walls, crates piled high. The room smelled of old paper and mildew. Marcus and Ellis crouched behind a stack of crates, trying to calm down. Marcus's shirt was soaked with sweat, his hands trembling. Ellis whispered, We're not safe yet. But we survived the first ambush. That's more than most make it through. Marcus nodded, though fear still gripped him. He had faced death multiple times in just a few hours. And he knew one thing for certain. The night on Rikers Island was far from over. Above them, the sounds of the riot continued. The screams, the crashes, the chaos. A constant reminder that survival was never guaranteed. And somewhere out there, the scar-faced inmate was still hunting him. Marcus pressed his back against the crates, chest heaving, sweat stinging his eyes. The storage room was silent for a moment, but the distant screams and crashing from above reminded him that the riot wasn't slowing down. Survival here meant staying alert every second. Ellis whispered, We need to move. This room won't keep us safe for long. Marcus nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. Every step they had taken so far had brought them closer to danger, and yet, staying still wasn't an option. A hidden path. Ellis crawled toward the back of the storage room and found a narrow passage behind a stack of old crates. Here, he said. It leads to the service tunnels. Might be our only way out of this block. The passage was dark, tight, and smelled of mold and sewage. Marcus hesitated for a second, then followed Ellis into the tunnel. Water dripped from the ceiling, soaking their clothes and making the floor slippery. Every sound echoed. Footsteps, water dripping, the occasional shout from above. A new threat. As they moved deeper, Marcus thought they were finally safe. But then he heard it. A low, menacing laugh echoing through the tunnel. Marcus froze. His blood ran cold. What was that? He whispered. Ellis shook his head. I don't know, stay quiet. A figure emerged from the shadows ahead. Tall, muscular, moving with deliberate, slow steps. Marcus's stomach dropped. It was someone new, someone different from the dorm gang. This person looked calm, confident, and dangerous. The figure raised a hand, pointing a flashlight toward them. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating Marcus's terrified face. Cornered in the tunnel. The tunnel narrowed, and Marcus realized there was nowhere to run. Behind them, the passage curved, but it was too long for them to escape quickly. Every instinct screamed danger. The figure's voice cut through the darkness, calm but threatening. You shouldn't be here. Marcus couldn't speak. His throat felt dry, and every muscle in his body trembled. Ellis whispered urgently. Maybe we can sneak past him, move slowly. Marcus nodded, trying to keep his breathing steady. They edged forward, each step making the floor creak. The figure's gaze followed every movement. A brush with death. Suddenly, the figure lunged. Marcus and Ellis ducked instinctively, sliding against the wet floor. The man's hand caught the edge of Marcus's backpack, yanking it and sending him stumbling forward. Ellis shouted, "Run!" They sprinted down the tunnel, adrenaline pumping like wildfire. Behind them, the figure gave chase, moving faster than anyone should be able to in the narrow, slippery tunnel. Marcus felt panic claw at him. Every step was a gamble. Every turn could hide a wall, a trap, or another enemy waiting to strike. Finally, they reached a ladder leading up to another part of the block. Marcus didn't hesitate. He grabbed it and started climbing, water dripping from the ceiling making it slick. Above them, the riot still roared. Below them, danger lurked in the shadows. And Marcus knew one thing clearly. Surviving Rikers Island was going to demand everything he had: courage, speed, and luck. Emerging into the chaos, Marcus's hands were raw from gripping the wet ladder, his muscles trembling with exhaustion. When he finally pulled himself onto the floor above, he froze. The room was worse than anything he had seen before. Broken furniture littered the floor. Smoke curled from a small fire in the corner. Shouts and screams echoed from every direction. The riot had spread to this level too. Ellis grabbed his arm. "We can't stay here. Let's move quietly." Marcus nodded, heart racing. Every instinct screamed, "Don't get seen." Every shadow could hide another attacker, another gang member, or worse, someone who had been hunting him from the beginning. A dangerous run. They darted across the floor, keeping low and hugging the walls. Each step was a gamble. A crate tipped over with a crash. Marcus held his breath, expecting an immediate attack. But the chaos around them was so loud, nobody seemed to notice. They reached a hallway that led to a stairwell. It looked like an exit. Hope flickered in Marcus's chest. For the first time, he thought they might actually make it out of this nightmare. But then a voice behind them froze him in place. "Don't move." Marcus spun around. A group of inmates blocked the hallway, faces twisted in anger. The scar-faced inmate from the dorm was among them, grinning like he had been expecting Marcus all along. Trapped. Ellis grabbed Marcus's arm. "We can't fight them all. We have to run past." Marcus swallowed hard. His hands shook. The scar-faced inmate stepped forward, swinging a metal pipe. The other inmates followed, closing the space behind him like a trap. Marcus realized there was no choice. He had to act fast or be caught. The dash. At the same time, Ellis shouted, "Now!" They sprinted. Marcus pushed off the wall, dodging a swing from the pipe. Sparks flew as metal hit concrete. Behind them, the scar-faced inmate yelled in frustration, chasing them relentlessly. Marcus's legs burned, lungs screaming for air, but adrenaline pushed him forward. They reached a small service door at the end of the hallway. It looked fragile, like it might be their only chance to escape. Ellis yanked the handle. Locked. Marcus's stomach sank. The scar-faced inmate was getting closer. Then Ellis spotted a thin vent near the floor. "Crawl through. Quick." Marcus didn't hesitate. He dropped to his hands and knees, slipping into the vent just as the scar-faced inmate reached for him. The metal scraped against his skin, and he could hear the man shouting behind him. A glimmer of safety. Inside the vent, it was dark, tight, and suffocating, but Marcus could breathe. For the first time in hours, he felt like he might actually survive, at least for now. He crawled forward, the sounds of the riot and the scar-faced inmate fading behind him. Every scrape against the metal was a reminder that danger was still close, but at least they had gained some ground. Ellis crawled behind him, whispering, "Keep going. Don't stop." Marcus nodded, fear still gripping him, but determination rising too. He realized something. Surviving Rikers Island wasn't just about avoiding fights. It was about thinking fast, moving fast, and never trusting that any moment was safe. Somewhere above, the riot continued. Somewhere behind, enemies still hunted him. And somewhere ahead, he didn't know what awaited. But Marcus knew one thing for certain. He wasn't going down without a fight. Into the unknown, Marcus crawled through the vent, muscles screaming, lungs burning, and every nerve on edge. The metal scraped against his arms and legs, but he didn't stop. Every second counted. Every moment wasted could be the last. Ellis followed closely behind, silent and tense. The sounds of the riot above were distant now, but Marcus knew it wasn't over. Somewhere, The scar-faced inmate was still out there, still hunting. Finally, the vent opened into a small utility room. Marcus pushed himself out and collapsed against the wall, gasping for air. The room was dim, lit only by a flickering bulb. Old pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping water onto the concrete floor. He looked around. This part of Rikers was different, quieter, darker, almost abandoned. But the silence didn't feel safe. A brief moment of relief. Ellis scanned the room. "We should move again," he whispered. "There's an emergency exit at the end of the hall. It might lead to the yard. That's our best chance to get away from the dorm chaos." Marcus nodded, trying to calm his racing heart. For the first time in hours, he felt a small flicker of hope. If they could reach the yard, maybe they could find safety. Maybe they could survive this night. The hallway ahead. They stepped into a narrow hallway. The concrete walls were cold and damp. Water pooled on the floor, making every step slippery. Every sound, dripping water, their own breathing, felt amplified in the quiet. Marcus's stomach twisted when he heard a faint shuffle behind them. He froze. Ellis whispered, "Someone's coming. Stay calm." They pressed themselves against the wall as a shadow passed by the end of the hall. It was hard to tell who it was, an officer? Another inmate? Marcus's heart hammered in his chest. Every second was tense. Every step could bring death. A dangerous choice. The hallway forked ahead. One path led to the emergency exit, but it was partially blocked by a stack of crates. The other path was dark, twisting, and unknown. Ellis looked at Marcus. "We have to take the crates. It's the faster way. You ready?" Marcus nodded, gripping a loose pipe he had found on the floor. He didn't know if it would help, but at least it gave him some feeling of control. The rush. They moved quickly, slipping past the crates as quietly as they could. Every step made Marcus's heart race. He could hear voices in the distance, shouts, curses, orders, a reminder that the chaos from the dorms was spreading everywhere. Then, a sudden shout rang out nearby. "Hey! Stop right there." Marcus froze. His stomach sank. Someone had seen them. Ellis grabbed his arm. "Run!" They sprinted down the hallway toward the exit, feet slipping on the wet floor. Marcus's heart was in his throat. The shouting grew louder behind them, closing in fast. As they approached the emergency exit, Marcus could see daylight spilling in, faint, but real. A glimpse of freedom, a chance to survive the night. But just as he reached for the door handle, a shadow moved from the darkness ahead, blocking their path. Marcus realized, with a surge of fear, that escaping Rikers Island was never going to be simple. The yard trap. Marcus's hand froze on the emergency exit handle. A tall, shadowy figure blocked the doorway. The faint daylight spilling in made the man's face hard to see, but his posture was aggressive, confident, clearly ready to stop anyone who tried to escape. Ellis grabbed Marcus's arm. "We don't have a choice. We have to go through him." Marcus swallowed hard. Fear twisted his stomach, but he knew Ellis was right. Hesitation would mean being caught, or worse. The first strike. The shadow moved fast. Before Marcus could react, the man lunged. Marcus swung the metal pipe he had been carrying. It barely connected, and the man staggered slightly, but didn't stop. Ellis shoved Marcus forward. "Run!" They darted past him, feet slipping on the wet concrete floor of the hallway. Behind them, the man cursed and gave chase, his footsteps echoing loudly. Marcus could hear the faint sounds of the riot still raging somewhere inside the building, but now the danger was immediate and close. Out into the yard. They burst through the emergency exit and into the yard. For a moment, Marcus felt a surge of hope. The open space, the faint sunlight, the fresh air, it was freedom, or at least a glimpse of it. But the yard was no safe haven. Inmates were scattered everywhere. Some were fighting, others were running, and officers were shouting orders, struggling to regain control. The scar-faced inmate from the dorm was nowhere in sight, but Marcus knew he wasn't truly gone. Ellis grabbed Marcus's arm. "We need to reach the far wall. There's a maintenance shed there. We can hide and figure out the next move." Marcus nodded. He sprinted, adrenaline pumping. Around them, the yard was chaos. Shouts, swinging fists, and the clatter of broken furniture filled the air. A dangerous crossing. Halfway across the yard, Marcus stumbled over debris. A group of inmates noticed and started moving toward them. Panic surged. Ellis grabbed him. "Keep moving. Don't stop." They zigzagged, trying to avoid the crowd. Marcus's lungs burned, legs ached, but the thought of being caught, or worse, pushed him forward. The shed. Finally, they reached the maintenance shed. It was small, metal, and grimy, but it offered cover. Marcus and Ellis slipped inside, pressing themselves against the wall, trying to catch their breath. Marcus's hands were shaking, and sweat ran into his eyes. He felt like he had been running for hours, but in reality, it was only minutes. Ellis whispered, "We're not safe yet. The riot is spreading. If we stay here too long, someone's bound to come looking." Marcus nodded. He realized something terrifying. Even though they had made it out of the stairwells, tunnels, and hallway ambushes, Rikers Island was relentless. There was no safe place. Not for him. Not for anyone. Suddenly, from outside the shed, the sound of boots hitting concrete grew louder. Someone was coming, and this time, Marcus knew it wasn't a random inmate. The screen fades to black. The final yard showdown. Marcus pressed himself against the metal wall of the shed, sweat dripping into his eyes, heart hammering so hard he thought it might burst. Outside, the sound of heavy boots grew louder. Whoever was coming was moving with purpose, not chaotic, not panicked, but hunting. Ellis whispered, "Get ready. He's coming right for us." Marcus's hands trembled as he gripped the metal pipe he still carried. Every inch of his body screamed fear, but there was no time to think. Only action could keep him alive. The confrontation. The shed door rattled as the shadow outside tried to push it open. Marcus swung the pipe instinctively, hitting the edge of the door. Sparks flew. A low, menacing laugh echoed from outside. The scar-faced inmate. Marcus's chest tightened. The man had been following them all along, waiting for this exact moment. Ellis nudged Marcus. "We fight together. Don't let him get inside." Marcus nodded, fear turning into resolve. He swung the pipe again as the door began to give way. The shadow forced the door open just enough to slip an arm inside. Marcus hit it with full force. The man cursed and stumbled back, giving Marcus and Ellis a moment to push the door fully closed. No way out. They were cornered. The yard was open behind them, filled with fighting inmates and shouting officers. There was nowhere to run, and the scar-faced inmate would not give up. Ellis whispered urgently, "We have to make a run for the wall, the far corner. You ready?" Marcus swallowed, fear clawing at him. He knew that running meant risking everything. One misstep, one person noticing, and it could be over. "Let's go," Marcus whispered. They burst from the shed, sprinting across the open yard. Marcus's legs burned. Sweat poured down his face. Behind them, the scar-faced inmate roared in fury and gave chase. The chaos of the yard. The yard was madness. Inmates fought. Officers yelled. Fires flickered from overturned trash cans. Marcus and Ellis zigzagged to avoid collisions. A swinging fist barely missed Marcus's head. A bottle crashed to the ground inches from Ellis's feet. Every heartbeat felt like a countdown. Every second could be the last. The leap. They reached the far corner wall. It was tall, but not impossible. Marcus glanced back. The scar-faced inmate was closing in. Ellis grabbed Marcus's arm. "On 3. Jump. Don't look back." Marcus took a deep breath. 1, 2, 3. They leapt. Hands scratched against the concrete. Feet hit the ground hard. Pain shot up Marcus's arms, but they were on the other side. Behind them, the scar-faced inmate reached the wall just seconds too late. He slammed his fists in frustration. Marcus collapsed, gasping for air. Ellis dropped beside him, equally exhausted. For the first time in hours, Marcus felt the tiniest spark of hope. They had survived the dorm, the stairwell, the tunnels, and the yard. But he knew this wasn't over. Rikers Island was a predator, relentless, dangerous, and unpredictable. Marcus looked back at the yard, at the chaos still raging, and whispered, "We made it for now." Surviving Rikers Island. For now. Marcus and Ellis may have made it through the dorm, the tunnels, and the chaos of the yard, but Rikers Island is far from over. This jail doesn't forgive mistakes, and the night is still young. Every shadow hides danger. Every sound could mean trouble. What happens next inside America's most feared jail? Who survives and who doesn't? You'll have to stay tuned to find out. If you enjoyed this story and want more real-life crime and prison documentaries, make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Stay alert, stay safe, and remember, not everyone makes it out alive.